Welcome to Learn English by Reading. Today, we will read a wonderful and meaningful story called The Farmer and His Sons. This story teaches us about the value of hard work, family, and wisdom. It is a simple but powerful lesson that reminds us how true treasure is not always gold or money. It is often the habits, love, and lessons we pass to others. In this story, an old farmer has 3 sons who are lazy and do not like to work. The father worries about their future and tries to teach them the importance of working hard. So, he creates a clever plan to make them understand. He tells them there is a treasure hidden in their field. The sons become excited and start digging, searching for the treasure. But what they discover in the end is something far more valuable. This story will help you improve your English while enjoying a touching moral lesson. You will learn new words, easy grammar, and useful phrases through simple storytelling. So, sit back, listen carefully, and enjoy the story. Let's begin. Chapter 1. A Wise Farmer and His Land. Once upon a time, in a quiet village surrounded by green fields and tall trees, there lived an old farmer. His name was Mr. Henry. He had worked on his land all his life. Every morning before the sun rose, he went out to the fields with his tools on his shoulder. He plowed the soil, planted seeds, and watered the plants. His hands were rough, his face was wrinkled, but his heart was full of love for his land. Mr. Henry was not rich, but he was happy. He lived in a small house made of wood and stone. Around his house were fruit trees, a vegetable garden, and a few cows and chickens. He loved the smell of the fresh earth, the sound of birds singing, and the beauty of nature. To him, his land was not just a piece of soil, it was his life, his home, and his treasure. He had 3 sons, Tom, Jack, and Peter. They were young, strong, and healthy, but sadly, they were lazy. They liked to sleep late, talk with friends, and spend their time doing nothing useful. They did not understand how much effort their father gave every day to keep the farm alive. Whenever Mr. Henry asked them to help, they made excuses. "Father, we will work tomorrow," said Tom. "It's too hot today," said Jack. "I will do it later," said Peter. But later never came. As the years passed, Mr. Henry began to worry. He was getting old and weak. His hands shook when he held his tools, and his back hurt after a few hours of work. One evening, after a long day in the fields, he sat under a tree and looked at the sunset. The golden light touched the crops, and the wind blew gently through the leaves. He thought about his sons and sighed deeply. "What will happen to them when I am gone?" he whispered sadly. He knew that if his sons didn't learn to work hard, the land would soon become dry and empty. All his years of effort would be wasted. But how could he teach them to love the land as he did? He tried to talk to them many times, but they didn't listen. They only nodded and went back to their lazy ways. One night, while lying in bed, Mr. Henry thought of a clever idea. "If they don't understand through words," he said to himself, "maybe they will learn through work." A small smile appeared on his face as he planned what to do next. He would teach them a lesson they would never forget. The next morning, Mr. Henry woke up early as usual. He walked slowly to the field, looked around, and touched the soil lovingly. Then he said quietly, "This land has always given me everything I needed. Now it must teach my sons its final lesson." When the sun rose high in the sky, his sons came out of the house. They saw their father sitting on a rock, looking serious but calm. "Father, what's wrong?" Tom asked. "My sons," said Mr. Henry slowly, I have something important to tell you. Come, sit with me." The three brothers sat down beside him. The old man looked at each of them kindly. "You know that this land is our only wealth. It has fed us, clothed us, and given us a home. But there is something more, something hidden within it." The sons looked surprised. "What do you mean, father?" asked Jack. Mr. Henry smiled softly. "There is a treasure buried somewhere in this field. Long ago my father told me about it, but I never had time to look for it. Now I am too old. You must find it." The sons' eyes lit up with excitement. "A treasure?" they said together. "Yes," said their father. "It is somewhere under the soil. Dig the whole field if you must, but don't stop until you find it." The brothers looked at each other eagerly. For the first time, they felt excited about working in the field. They had no idea that their wise father had just begun a plan to change their lives forever. Chapter 2. The Lazy Sons. After hearing their father talk about the hidden treasure, the three sons could not stop thinking about it. That night, they sat together near the fire, whispering and planning. Tom said excitedly, "Maybe the treasure is gold coins or silver." Jack's eyes sparkled. "Or maybe it's a box full of jewels and diamonds." Peter laughed and said, "When we find it, we will be rich. We'll buy new clothes, new horses, and a big house." They all dreamed about the treasure and went to bed with happy thoughts. But even though they were excited, they were still lazy by nature. Working hard was something they never did before. The next morning, their father came out early as usual. The sons were still sleeping. Mr. Henry stood at the door and called, "Wake up, my sons! The treasure won't dig itself. You must start early if you want to find it." The brothers slowly opened their eyes. "Oh, father," Tom said with a yawn, "the sun is too hot today." Jack turned on his side. "Maybe we can start tomorrow." Peter pulled the blanket over his head. "Yes, tomorrow sounds better." Mr. Henry smiled sadly and said nothing. He knew his son's lazy habits very well. He just said calmly, "Very well, my sons. But remember, every day you wait, someone else might find the treasure first." The moment he said that, the three brothers sat up quickly. "Someone else?" Tom asked. "Yes," said Mr. Henry. "Many people know that old stories often hide truth. If they come before you, they might dig it out and take it away." That thought shocked the lazy brothers. They didn't want anyone else to get the treasure. So they jumped out of bed, ate their breakfast quickly, and went to the field with shovels and spades. However, they didn't know where to start. The field was big, and the soil was hard. Tom looked around and said, "Let's dig here near the tree." Jack said, "No, near the fence looks better." Peter pointed to the middle and said, "Let's dig there. The treasure must be deep inside." They argued for a while, then finally began digging. At first, they worked fast because they wanted to find the treasure quickly, but after a short time, their hands hurt, their backs ached, and sweat ran down their faces. Tom threw down his shovel. "This is too hard. Why is the treasure not showing up?" Jack wiped his forehead. "Maybe Father made a mistake." Peter said, "I think we should rest and continue later." When their father came to the field, he saw his sons sitting under a tree, tired and complaining. He walked slowly toward them and said gently, "My dear sons, I see that you have begun your search." "Yes, Father," said Tom, "but this is really difficult. We have been digging all morning and there's nothing here." Mr. Henry looked at the holes they made. The soil was turned, soft, and ready for planting. He smiled secretly and said, "Don't lose heart, my sons." Treasure lies deep. You must dig the whole field. Don't stop halfway. Keep going." His words gave them new energy. The brothers stood up and continued their work. They dug another part of the field, and then another. Each time, they thought they would find the treasure soon, but all they found were stones, roots, and dry soil. As the sun went down, their hands were blistered and their clothes were dirty. They were tired, but for the first time in their lives, they had worked from morning to evening. When they came home, their mother gave them food. They ate silently, too tired to talk. Mr. Henry smiled at them and said, "You have done well today, my sons. The treasure may not appear at once, but those who work hard always get their reward." The brothers didn't fully understand what he meant, but they nodded politely. After dinner, they went to bed early. Their bodies ached, but there was a strange new feeling inside them, a small sense of pride. For the first time, they had earned their rest. Chapter 3. The Farmer's Worry. Days passed, and the three brothers continued to dig the field. Every morning they woke up earlier than before. They worked under the bright sun, turning the soil, moving rocks, and pulling out weeds. The field slowly began to look clean and fresh. But still, they found no treasure. Tom became frustrated. "Father said there was a treasure here, but we have dug everywhere. There is nothing but dirt." Jack nodded, wiping the sweat from his forehead. Maybe it was just an old story. Maybe there is no treasure at all. Peter looked tired. "We worked so hard for nothing," he said sadly. When their father came to see them, he saw the disappointment in their faces. The field looked beautiful now, soft, clean, and ready for planting, but his sons only saw their failure. "My sons," said Mr. Henry kindly, "why do you look so sad?" "Father," Tom said angrily, "we have dug the whole field. There is no treasure anywhere. You lied to us." Mr. Henry shook his head slowly. "No, my sons, I did not lie. The treasure is there. You just have not seen it yet." The brothers looked confused. "But where?" asked Jack. Mr. Henry smiled and said, "Patience, my boys. You will find it soon. But for now, rest. Tomorrow, we will talk again." That night, as his sons slept, Mr. Henry sat by the window, looking out at the moonlight shining on the field. His heart felt heavy. He was proud of how much his sons had worked, but he also knew he didn't have much time left. His body was weak, and he could feel sickness growing inside him. "I must make sure they understand before it's too late," he whispered softly to himself. The next morning, the farmer called his sons together again. They sat under the same tree near the field. The air was cool, and birds were singing sweetly in the distance. "My dear sons," he began, "you have worked hard for many days. I am proud of you. The field looks beautiful again. But do not stop now. You must plant seeds in this soil. If you do, you will soon see your true treasure." Tom frowned. "Plant seeds? But father, we were looking for gold." Mr. Henry smiled gently. "Gold can disappear, my son, but what grows from your hands will feed you forever. This land is your treasure. Treat it with love, and it will give you more than gold." The brothers were quiet. They didn't completely understand their father's words, but they agreed to do as he said. So, they began planting seeds, corn, wheat, and beans, all over the freshly dug field. They watered the plants and took care of them every day. The sun shone, the rain fell, and the plants slowly began to grow. Weeks later, the field was full of green life. The crops grew tall and healthy. The brothers looked at the field with surprise and happiness. "Look, brothers," said Peter. "Our field is beautiful again. We did this." Jack smiled proudly. "Yes, it's all because of our hard work." Tom nodded slowly. "Maybe Father was right. The treasure is not gold, but what the land gives us." When Mr. Henry saw the green fields waving in the wind, tears came to his eyes. His heart was full of joy. His plan had worked. His lazy sons had finally learned the value of work. That evening, he called them together again. They sat by his side as the sun went down. The sky was red and golden. Mr. Henry looked at them with love and said, "My dear sons, you have made me proud. You have found the true treasure of this land. Remember, hard work and care will always bring reward. Never forget this lesson." The brothers nodded quietly. They didn't know it yet, but those words would stay in their hearts forever. That night, the old farmer smiled peacefully as he closed his eyes. His worry began to fade away. He knew his sons would now continue his work with love and strength. The treasure of the farmer was not gold or silver. It was the wisdom he left behind. Chapter 4. A Clever Plan. After many weeks of hard work, the old farmer's plan was finally working. His once lazy sons had learned to dig, plant, and care for the land. The field looked green and full of life. But deep inside, Mr. Henry still worried. He wanted to make sure his sons truly understood the meaning of hard work, not just for one season, but for the rest of their lives. One evening, as the orange sun slowly disappeared behind the hills, the farmer sat under his favorite tree. The wind blew softly through the leaves, and the sound of crickets filled the air. He watched his sons walking back from the field, their faces covered with dust, their clothes dirty, but their eyes full of pride. "They are changing," Mr. Henry whispered to himself with a gentle smile. "But I must make sure they never forget this lesson." That night, after dinner, he called his sons together. The three young men sat beside their father, waiting to hear what he had to say. The small oil lamp on the table flickered softly. "My sons," Mr. Henry began, "you have worked well these past weeks. The field looks beautiful again, and I am proud of you." "Thank you, Father," said Tom, smiling. Jack added, "Yes, we learned a lot from digging and planting." Peter said softly, "But we are still wondering about the treasure. We never found it." Mr. Henry nodded slowly. "Yes, I know. And I have thought about that too. Maybe the treasure is still hidden somewhere deeper in the field. But listen carefully, my sons. I will give you one more clue." The brothers leaned forward eagerly. "The treasure," said Mr. Henry, "is not found in one day or one place. It comes to those who work with patience and love. Tomorrow, continue to care for the field. Water the crops, remove the weeds, and protect the plants. When harvest time comes, you will see your treasure with your own eyes." The brothers looked at each other, puzzled. They did not fully understand what he meant, but they respected their father's words. Early the next morning, they began to work again. Each day, they watered the plants, pulled out weeds, and made sure the crops grew healthy. Their muscles became stronger, their skin darker, and their hearts happier. For the first time, they began to feel a deep connection to the land. Weeks turned into months, and soon the crops were ready for harvest. The field was golden with wheat and shining with ripe corn. The brothers worked together, cutting and gathering the crops. When they finished, they looked at the large piles of grain and vegetables stacked neatly near the house. Jack's eyes widened. "Look at all this. We have never had such a big harvest before." Tom smiled proudly. "Yes, we worked hard, and now we can see the result." Peter laughed with joy. This must be the treasure Father was talking about. Just then, Mr. Henry walked slowly toward them. His steps were weak, but his eyes were full of light. He looked at the field, then at his sons, and said softly, "Now, my sons, do you understand? The treasure I spoke of was not gold or jewels. It was the fruit of your labor. When you work hard and care for your land, it gives you everything you need." The brothers finally understood. They looked at each other and smiled. "Yes, Father," said Tom. "Now we see. The real treasure is the reward of our hard work." Mr. Henry nodded proudly. "That is the truth, my sons. Remember this lesson for the rest of your lives. Laziness brings nothing but sorrow, while work brings happiness, food, and peace." The wind blew gently across the golden field. The sun shone on their faces, and the three brothers felt a deep respect for their father. They realized how wise and clever he had been. From that day on, they never forgot his plan. Even after their father grew old and weak, they continued to care for the land with love and devotion. The clever plan of the wise farmer had changed them forever. Chapter 5. The Secret of the Hidden Treasure. After the harvest, the three brothers felt proud and happy. Their hard work had brought them more food and crops than they had ever seen before. The storage room was full of golden wheat, fresh vegetables, and fruits from the garden. The cows gave more milk, and the hens laid more eggs. The house was full of life and joy. But even though everything was going well, the brothers still had one question in their minds. Where was the hidden treasure? One evening, as they sat outside their house watching the sunset, Tom said, "Father's plan really changed us. But do you think there was ever a real treasure buried here?" Jack nodded. "I was thinking the same. Maybe Father just said it to make us work." Peter smiled quietly. "Maybe the treasure is something we cannot see." The brothers talked for a while, then decided to ask their father again. That night, they found Mr. Henry sitting in his old chair near the fire. The light from the fire made his face look warm and peaceful. He looked weaker than before, but his eyes still shone with wisdom. "Father," said Tom softly, "we want to ask you something." Mr. Henry smiled. "Yes, my sons." "What is it?" Jack said. "We worked hard, just as you told us. We planted, watered, and harvested. The field is full of crops, and we are grateful. But we still wonder, where is the treasure you told us about?" The old man looked at them for a moment and then laughed gently. "Ah, my sons," he said, "so you still think of gold and silver?" Tom blushed. "Well, maybe a little." Mr. Henry took a deep breath and said slowly, "Listen carefully. The treasure I spoke of was never a box of gold or jewels. It was the land itself and the lesson you learned through work. You see, when you dug the soil, you didn't find gold, but you made the land rich and ready. When you planted seeds, you gave life to the field, and when you cared for the crops, you found the greatest treasure of all, the joy of honest work." The brothers were silent. The fire crackled softly. They finally understood what their father had meant. Peter said softly, "So, the treasure was not hidden under the ground. It was in our work, and in the harvest." Mr. Henry smiled proudly. "Exactly. The treasure was always there, waiting for you to discover it through your effort. Gold and silver can be lost, but the value of hard work stays forever. It will feed you, teach you, and make you strong." Tears came to Jack's eyes. "Father," he said, "we were foolish before. We were lazy and careless. But now we see your wisdom. You gave us the best treasure in the world." Mr. Henry nodded gently. "Yes, my sons. I wanted you to learn this before I leave this world. A father's greatest gift is not money, but knowledge." The three brothers sat quietly beside their father, feeling love and respect. The night was peaceful. The moonlight fell softly on the fields outside, shining over the crops they had grown with their own hands. The next morning they woke up early again. The habit of hard work was now part of them. They went to the field together, smiling and talking. They repaired the fence, fed the animals, and watered the plants. As they worked, Tom said, "You know, brothers, I think we should take care of this land just like Father did. It's more than our home. It's our treasure." Jack nodded. "Yes, and we must never waste a single day again." Peter smiled. "We'll work together, just like Father taught us." From that day on, the brothers continued their father's legacy. They worked with love and unity. The land gave them plenty, and their hearts were full of peace. And though they never found gold or jewels, they discovered something even more valuable: the secret of the hidden treasure, the power of hard work, patience, and love. Chapter 6. Digging the Field. The next few days after their talk with their father were full of new energy. The three brothers woke up early every morning, even before the sun appeared in the sky. The birds sang sweetly in the trees, and a soft wind blew through the fields. The brothers looked around proudly at their land. It was green, wide, and full of promise. Tom took his shovel and said, "Let's dig again, brothers." This time, not to find gold, but to make the soil even better. Jack smiled and replied, "Yes. Let's make this the best field in the whole village." Peter laughed and said, "And maybe, while digging, we'll find a few shiny coins too." They all laughed together and began to work. At first, the digging was hard, the soil was heavy, and the sun was hot. Sweat ran down their faces, and their hands became sore. But they did not stop. They remembered their father's words: "Work brings reward." Each time they grew tired, they looked at the field and thought about how far they had come. While digging, they spoke about the lessons their father had taught them. Tom said, "Before, I used to think working on the land was boring. Now, I feel proud when I see the plants growing." Jack nodded. "Yes, it's strange. The more we work, the happier I feel." Peter smiled. "That's because the land gives back what we give to it." Every day the brothers dug deeper and wider. They removed stones, pulled out weeds, and made the soil soft and ready for planting again. Their teamwork was strong. When one felt tired, the other two encouraged him to keep going. Their father, Mr. Henry, watched them from the window with joy in his heart. His sons, who once refused to lift a finger, now worked from morning till evening. His clever plan had truly worked. One afternoon, as they dug near the old oak tree, Peter's shovel hit something hard. Clang. "What was that?" Tom asked, running over. Peter dug carefully around the spot and pulled out an old wooden box covered in dirt. The three brothers stared at it in surprise. "A treasure box?" Jack whispered excitedly. Their hearts beat fast as they opened it. Inside, they found some rusty farming tools, a few old coins, and a small note written in faded ink. Peter took out the note and read it slowly. "To my sons, if you find this box, remember that true treasure is not in gold, but in the work of your hands and the love of your hearts. Your father." The brothers were silent for a moment. Tears filled their eyes. Tom said softly, "So, Father knew we would find this one day." Jack smiled. He left us a message to remind us forever. Peter folded the note carefully and said, "This is worth more than gold. We will keep it safe always." They placed the old tools and coins back inside the box and buried it again under the oak tree. "Let it stay here," Tom said, "as a memory of Father's wisdom." When they returned home that evening, Mr. Henry was sitting outside in his chair. His eyes were weak, but he smiled when he saw them. "Father," said Tom gently, "we found something in the field today." Mr. Henry raised his eyebrows. "Oh? And what did you find?" Peter held up the note. "Your message. We understand it now." The old man laughed softly, his eyes shining with love. "Then my lesson is complete," he said. "You have found the real treasure, not with your hands, but with your hearts." That night, the brothers sat together by their father's side, telling stories and laughing softly. The stars sparkled in the sky, and the air was peaceful. They felt thankful for the land, for their father's wisdom, and for the work that had changed their lives. From that day on, they promised to take care of the land forever, just as their father had taught them. And every time they dug the field, they remembered the treasure buried under the oak tree, the message that would guide them for the rest of their lives. Chapter 7. Hard Work Begins. The morning after they found their father's note, the three brothers felt stronger and more motivated than ever. The message touched their hearts deeply. They finally understood what their father had been teaching them all along. That real treasure comes from hard work, unity, and love. As the golden sun rose over the hills, the brothers went to the field with their tools in hand. The air was cool and fresh. The birds were singing and a soft mist floated over the crops. It was a perfect morning to work. Tom looked around and said proudly, "This land is ours now, brothers. Father trusted us to care for it." Jack nodded. "Yes, from today, we'll work harder than ever before." Peter smiled. "Let's make Father proud every day." And so, their real work began. They started by preparing new parts of the land that had not been used for years. The soil there was dry and full of weeds, but the brothers didn't give up. They dug deep, removed stones, and cleaned the ground carefully. Each swing of their shovel and every drop of sweat made them feel alive. Tom said, "It's strange, isn't it? Before, we were lazy and wanted gold. Now this work feels like a blessing." Jack laughed. "Yes, and the more we work, the stronger we get," Peter added with a smile. "It's as if the land is giving us strength in return." Every day they worked from sunrise to sunset. Sometimes their hands were sore and their backs ached, but they never complained. When one felt tired, the others encouraged him. When one fell behind, the others helped. They shared water, food, and laughter. At noon, they often sat under the big oak tree to rest. They looked out at the green fields waving in the wind and felt peace in their hearts. The world felt simple and beautiful. One day, while resting, Peter said quietly, "Do you think Father knew how much this would change us?" Jack replied, "He knew everything. He was a wise man." Tom smiled. "Yes, he gave us the greatest gift, not money, but the will to work." The next few weeks were busy. They planted more seeds, repaired the fences, and built a small shed to store their tools. Every evening, they returned home tired but happy. Their mother cooked warm meals, and they all sat together, talking and laughing. Mr. Henry watched his sons proudly. Though his body was weak, his heart was full. He often said to his wife, "Our sons have become real men now." The land will live through them one afternoon. A traveler passed by their farm. He stopped to watch the brothers working together. Impressed by their effort, he said, "You young men are working so hard. What drives you to do this every day?" Tom looked up and smiled. "We learned that hard work is the only path to true success." Jack added, "Our father taught us that the land gives back what you give to it." Peter nodded. "This is our treasure, not gold, but peace, food, and happiness." The traveler smiled warmly and said, "You are lucky sons. May your land always stay green, and may your hearts never forget this lesson." That evening, as the sun set in golden colors, the brothers stood together, looking over their field. The crops danced gently in the wind, and the smell of fresh soil filled the air. Tom said softly, "This field has changed our lives." Jack nodded. "It has given us everything," Peter whispered, "and it all started with Father's clever plan." As the stars began to appear in the sky, they walked home slowly, feeling proud of what they had built together. Inside their hearts, they carried their father's wisdom like a flame, a light that would guide them forever. Hard work had truly begun, but it no longer felt like a burden. It had become their joy, their purpose, and their way of life. Chapter 8. The Surprise Discovery. One bright morning, the three brothers woke up with excitement. The field had grown even more beautiful over the weeks. The crops were tall and green, and the smell of fresh soil filled the air. Birds were singing, and bees buzzed from flower to flower. The brothers felt proud as they walked to the field together. Tom looked around and said, "It is amazing how much we have done." "Look at all the plants. They are taller than me?" Jack laughed. "Yes, and the wheat is so golden. Soon it will be ready to harvest." Peter smiled. "I feel happy every time I see this. It's as if the land is alive." That morning, while digging near the edge of the field, Peter hit something hard under the soil. Clang! His shovel bounced off the object, surprising him. "Tom! Jack! Come quickly!" he shouted. The brothers ran over and helped Peter dig carefully. Slowly, a small wooden chest appeared, half buried in the ground. Its surface was old and covered with dirt. The brothers' eyes widened in surprise. "A treasure!" exclaimed Tom. Jack nodded excitedly. "We really found it this time," Peter said softly. "Let's open it carefully." They lifted the chest out of the ground and brushed off the dirt. With trembling hands, they opened the lid. Inside, they saw old coins, some small jewels, and a note written in faded ink. Peter picked up the note and read it aloud. "My sons, true treasure is not only gold or jewels. The greatest treasure is hard work, patience, and love for the land. Your father, who loves you." The brothers looked at each other and laughed softly. They realized that the treasure was both real and symbolic. It was the reward of their hard work and the lesson their father had taught them. Tom said thoughtfully, "We have learned that hard work brings more than just coins." "It brings pride, joy, and strength," Jack added. "Yes, and our father left us this message so we would never forget." Peter nodded. "This is the best treasure we could ever find." They decided to leave most of the coins in the chest and keep the note as a reminder of their father's wisdom. The small amount of money was not important. It was the lesson that mattered most. The brothers spent the rest of the day cleaning the field and preparing it for the next planting season. Every corner of the land looked neat and ready to give life again. They worked together, laughing and sharing stories, their hearts full of pride. That evening, when they returned home, Mr. Henry was sitting on his chair outside the house. He smiled warmly as he saw his sons. "Father," said Tom, "we found the chest today. It has some coins, jewels, and your note." Mr. Henry's eyes twinkled. "Ah, so you discovered it. Good. Do you understand the lesson?" "Yes, father," said Jack. "We have learned that the real treasure is the work we do and the love we put into it." Peter added, "And the field, the crops, and everything we grew together are part of that treasure." The old farmer nodded proudly. "Exactly. You have finally understood what I have been trying to teach you for years." That night, the brothers sat together, talking quietly and smiling. They felt a deep sense of happiness and gratitude. They realized that the joy of working the land, caring for the crops, and helping each other was far more valuable than any gold or jewels. From that day, they continued to work the field with love, patience, and dedication. Every morning they woke up with excitement, ready to care for the land that had given them so much. And though they had found a small treasure in the chest, the greatest discovery was inside themselves. The pride and joy of honest work, the bond of family, and the wisdom of their Father. Chapter 9. The True Treasure Revealed. The next morning, the three brothers woke up early, feeling excited and proud. The field was full of golden crops, fresh vegetables, and tall plants waving in the gentle breeze. The sunlight shone brightly over the green land, and birds chirped happily in the trees. Tom looked around and said, "It is amazing how far we have come. The field looks so alive." Jack smiled. "Yes, it is beautiful. All our hard work has made it strong and full of life." Peter nodded. "I feel happy every time I see the crops. They are like a reward for our effort." That day, Mr. Henry asked the brothers to gather around him. They walked slowly to the large oak tree at the edge of the field. The sun was high, and the wind blew softly through the leaves. "My sons," Mr. Henry began, "you have worked hard for many months. You have dug the soil, planted seeds, watered the crops, and cared for the land. Now it is time for you to understand the final lesson." The brothers looked at him with curiosity. "The treasure I spoke of," continued Mr. Henry, "was not gold, silver, or jewels. The real treasure is this land you see before you, the crops you have grown, and the strength and patience you have learned. Everything you have done has given you something far more valuable than coins, a life full of purpose and pride." Tom's eyes widened. "So, the treasure was the land itself?" "Yes," said Mr. Henry. "Every seed you planted, every drop of water you poured, and every hour you spent working has created a treasure that will feed you, your family, and even your neighbors. This is the greatest wealth anyone can have." Jack looked at the golden wheat and the ripe vegetables. "I understand now, Father. The treasure was never hidden in one place. It was in all of our hard work." Peter smiled and added, "And we learned how to work together, help each other, and care for the land." "That is more valuable than anything else," Mr. Henry nodded proudly. "Exactly, my sons. Hard work, patience, and love are treasures that never disappear. Gold can be lost, and jewels can be stolen, but the value of your effort, your courage, and your teamwork will always stay with you." The brothers looked at each other quietly. They remembered the days when they were lazy, avoiding work, and dreaming only of gold. Now, everything had changed. They felt proud, strong, and confident. Tom said softly, "Father, we are so grateful for your wisdom. We were foolish before, but now we see the true treasure in our work." Jack nodded. "Yes, We understand that nothing is more important than learning to be patient, responsible, and hardworking. Peter whispered, and we will never forget this lesson. We will take care of the land and each other forever. Mr. Henry smiled and placed his hands on their shoulders. My sons, you have learned the lesson that took me many years to understand. You are now ready to take care of this farm, and one day you will teach the next generation the same wisdom. The brothers spent the rest of the day in the field, harvesting the crops they had worked so hard to grow. Every wheat stalk, every vegetable, and every fruit felt like a gift of hard work and dedication. They worked together happily, laughing and sharing stories as they filled baskets with their bounty. That evening, when the harvest was complete, they stood together in the middle of the field, looking at the golden land surrounding them. The sky was painted with orange and pink colors, and the wind whispered softly through the crops. Tom said, "Now I truly understand. The field, the work, and the lessons we learned, this is our treasure." Jack smiled. "Yes, and we will always protect it and take care of it." Peter nodded. "Our treasure will last forever, and we will never forget Father's wisdom." Mr. Henry looked at his sons and felt deep joy. The true treasure had been revealed, not in coins, not in jewels, but in the hard work, love, and unity that his sons now carried in their hearts. And from that day, the three brothers worked every day with pride, knowing that they had discovered the greatest treasure in the world, the treasure of honest labor, family bonds, and a wise father's guidance. Chapter 10. The Lesson of Hard Work. After the harvest, the three brothers finally understood the full meaning of their father's words. The golden wheat, the ripe vegetables, and the green fields were not just crops. They were the proof of their effort, patience, and unity. Every day they worked together. They felt stronger, happier, and more proud of themselves. Tom looked at the fields one morning and said, "I never thought that working on the land could feel so good. It is hard, but it makes me feel alive." Jack nodded. "Yes, before, we wanted treasures and gold, but now I see that the reward is much greater. It is the work itself, and the results it brings." Peter smiled. "And the land gives us more than food. It gives us lessons, patience, and happiness." Their father, Mr. Henry, watched from the doorway of the house. His body was weaker than before, but his eyes shone with pride. He had spent his life teaching, guiding, and nurturing the farm, and now he saw his sons taking the lessons to heart. "My sons," he said softly, "you have discovered the greatest treasure of all. Not gold, not silver, not jewels, but the power of your own hands and hearts. Work hard, care for your land, and help each other. This is the lesson I wanted to give you." The brothers listened quietly. They remembered the days when they were lazy and careless. They remembered how difficult the digging was at first, and how sore and tired they felt. And now they remembered how proud and happy they were after seeing the fields full of life. One afternoon, as they rested under the big oak tree, Tom said thoughtfully, "Father, I understand now. Gold and jewels can disappear, but what we create with our own hands lasts forever." Jack added, "Yes, and working together has brought us closer as brothers. That is a treasure no money can buy." Peter smiled. "And we will always remember your lesson. We will take care of this farm and continue your work." The brothers continued to work in the fields every day. They planted new seeds, watered the crops, repaired fences, and fed the animals. Each task, no matter how small, was done with care and attention. They laughed together, shared meals, and encouraged one another. They understood that life required effort, and every effort had its reward. Mr. Henry often sat nearby, watching them with a satisfied smile. He knew that the farm was in good hands, and that the lessons he had taught would live on forever. He had given his sons a gift more valuable than any treasure chest, the knowledge that hard work brings success, pride, and happiness. One day, the brothers gathered together and looked across the wide green fields. The sun was setting, painting the sky with orange and pink colors. They felt a deep sense of peace and joy. Tom said, "Father, we are ready now. We will continue your work and teach others the lessons you gave us." Jack nodded. "Yes, we will never forget the value of patience, effort, and care." Peter whispered, "This farm and our hard work will always be our true treasure." Mr. Henry smiled and placed his hand on each of their shoulders. "You have learned well, my sons. Remember this lesson always. Life rewards those who work diligently, who care for others, and who act with honesty and love. That is the greatest treasure anyone can have." From that day forward, the farm thrived. The crops grew tall and healthy, the animals were strong, and the family lived happily. The three brothers worked with joy, understanding that every bit of effort they put in was part of the real treasure. And though gold and jewels were never found, the sons had discovered something far greater, a life full of purpose, pride, and the wisdom of hard work. The farmer's lesson had been learned, and it would continue to guide them forever. Outro, the treasure of hard work. Welcome to Learn English by Reading. Today, we finished the story of the farmer and his sons. This story teaches us an important lesson. The real treasure in life is not gold or jewels, but hard work, patience, and love. The three brothers learned that being lazy and waiting for easy rewards does not lead to happiness. Instead, when they worked together on the farm, planted seeds, watered the crops, and cared for the land, they discovered a much greater treasure. They found pride in their effort, joy in their achievements, and the strength of working together as a family. Stories like this remind us that success does not come quickly or easily. It comes from daily effort, discipline, and caring for the people and things around us. Every small task we do with honesty and care builds something valuable for our future. So, whether you are learning English, studying for school, or working on a personal goal, remember the lesson of the farmer and his sons. Keep working patiently, stay consistent, and never give up. Life will reward you with knowledge, strength, and true happiness, the kind of treasure that lasts forever. Thank you for joining us in this story today. Keep reading, keep learning, and remember, the real treasure is always in your hard work and the love you put into everything you do. See you in the next story, and happy learning.